Well, Noel, it's sensible to diversify, and this is what this piece of work is all about, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. I think basically what it's saying is that we need to take stock of where we are in terms of tourism. We've had 4 years of no growth. We haven't recovered to where we were 5 or 6 years ago. And we have an over-dependency on one source market, the British market. Thankfully, the Tourism Recovery Task Force has produced a plan for the British market. It's a change of direction in Britain, and hopefully that will produce growth. But it won't give us the kind of growth we need to go forward in the future.
Great. So where did this all start to go wrong then?
Well, I don't know if it went wrong, but certainly tourism changed. If you look at the British market, we had the Ryanair effect, low fares, more routes in the end of the 90s. In Europe, we had a buoyant return in terms of growth from Europe. North America has been good to us over the period of time. But I think that the mix and where the growth's coming from, the British market collapsed over the last 5 years. So whether we'll ever get back to that level or not in Britain. And the market fundamentally changed. We became a short break market, a lot of it to Dublin. And then the popularity waned. So we've got to find replacement somewhere else. And I think one of the important things to mention is that the capacity of Ireland has increased over that period of time. So businesses have been struggling, as you know, for survival over the past 5 years, and they need growth. They need new business.
By capacity, you mean additional
hotel rooms, and we've got more attractions. We've got better attractions.
Sure.
We've got better infrastructure.
Sure.
We've got good air access and sea access.
Sure.
So the carrying capacity, if you like, of the country has increased.
Yeah. Bed nights are generally thought to be a sounder economic measurement of how we are doing. How are we doing on that front?
Yes, indeed, they are, because say one of the characteristics of international tourism in recent years has been people are taking shorter trips and more frequent trips. So the bed nights the average length of stay has been decreasing. If you look at bed nights, however, Europe is our number one source market in terms of holiday makers. So people who come here out of choice, rather than coming to visit friends or coming on business. We get more bed nights out of Europe than we do out of Britain, for instance, at the moment. We also get more holiday makers out of Europe than we get out of Britain.
So it's already the number one source?
In terms of holiday,
holiday makers.
But for carriers and other people, VFR and business are equally as important.
Sure, of course. And you've looked at a theoretical full recovery scenario by 2016, based on what we currently know and based on the sort of estimates for market growth. And where is that business likely to be sourced, and how does that look at this point in time?
Well, I suppose roughly, if you wanted to go back to where we were, as approximately 8 million visitors. We're somewhere around 6 million at the moment. The British market plan, GB, Path to Growth, is saying that if we can get 20% growth in holiday visitors over the next 3 to 4 years, and maybe 10% the rest of the market, that's it. Very good plan for the US market from Tourism Ireland, where it's aiming to get a greater share of the US to Europe business, and that's projecting, hopefully we can target about 20% growth from there. That leaves us a huge chunk of a shortfall still. So you're looking at mainland Europe basically as producing growth of somewhere over 30%, maybe 35% over a 4-year period.
Big ask.
Almost double-digit growth per annum.
Yeah.
So it's a big ask. But that's where our opportunity is, because if we look at international tourism generally, intra-regional travel, so within Europe or within Asia, is the bulk of travel.
Or the Americas even.
Rather than intercontinental travel.
Yeah.
Obviously we have a small market segment in terms of the long haul markets.
Yeah.
Australia, New Zealand, the BRIC economies and so forth. Less than 400,000 visitors at the moment. Yeah. So even if we got 20% growth there, they're small numbers.
Absolutely. Well, we'll come back to those in a moment, but the real opportunity then, you're saying, is of course closer to home, Britain, and particularly continental Europe. But where precisely, or where most particularly in continental Europe?
Well, I think if we look at continental Europe, the number one market internationally for travel is Germany. It's also the world's largest source market for travel. The second is France. And then you drop down quite considerably to get to the Benelux, the Nordics, Spain and Italy. And happily, our pattern more or less reflects the relative size of those markets.
Yeah.
So we've got them in the right order, if you like.
Sure.
Our problem is our share is tiny.
Yeah.
It's less than 1% of any source market in Europe, and in some instances less than even a half of 1%.
Germany in particular.
Yeah. Now Germany is a mature market; it's not going to be growing very fast.
Yeah.
So the whole emphasis has to be: we've got to win market share.
Sure.
We just can't go with economic forecast, which says the market is going to go by 2%, we'd be looking to get our 2% share of that,
Sure.
of that growth.
Sure.
And we've got to go for market share growth.
Absolutely.
And if you look at other sectors of the economy, particularly the food and agri sector, they're winning. They're winning on the basis of market share.
Even though the global economy is weak for them as well.
Of course, they're faced with the same global economy as we are in tourism,
Sure.
the same consumer lack of confidence or whatever we would talk about in terms of disposable income and people spending generally. And yet
Even happens in
winning.
travel. Ryanair, of course, are growing in a...
Ryanair have been growing, they've been adding capacity, but it's all through market share.
Sure.
And their 15% year-on-year growth in terms of passengers does not reflect what the market is doing.
Of course, yeah.
But they're winning share.
Absolutely.
So if Ireland's to grow, basically, and I suppose the top two markets in Europe have to be Germany and France.
Yeah.
But Germany particularly.
Yeah. Indeed, the market share point is very interesting, because that is precisely what the GB Path to Growth is also saying, that the growth that we expect and hope that we can get has to be won through winning market share. But anyway, we talked briefly about the BRIC markets, but a lot of people place a lot of faith and hope in places like Brazil, China, India, Russia. They're much too big to deal with in one program. We're going to come back to all of those, and we're going to come back to Germany and France again in the weeks to come anyway,
Right.
because to try and fit too much in too quickly wouldn't do justice to any of them. But a brief few words about, say, China and Brazil.
If you look at China, I mean, say it is fast growing in terms of travel. There's no doubt about that. The next year, probably, or this year, 2013, probably over 40 million kind of international trips out of there. But the bulk of those to other countries in the region, you know, to Thailand, Indonesia, and Singapore, and Vietnam, and so forth. Less than 4 million come to Europe. The only European country in the top 10 destination for Chinese travel is France.
Yeah.
They get about 1 million a year. So yes, there's an opportunity there, but we're very much a secondary destination. You know, when these people travel to Europe, they want to hit the hotspots, they want to hit the big cities.
Sure.
And you know, with all due respect, we're not on that list.
Sure. Maybe in time, but not
Maybe
not
in
the
time.
short term, yeah.
And I think obviously the short-term opportunity in any of the BRIC economies, and particularly where we've got a visa issue,
Yeah.
is to align ourselves with the UK.
Sure.
So tour operators that are selling packages to the UK, including London, maybe they can be persuaded to add on Dublin for a night or two.
Yeah. Makes sense. What about Brazil? We don't have a visa issue there.
We don't have a visa issue there, but it's a relatively smaller market. Again, they're going to mainland European countries. Access to Europe from Brazil by air is mainly through gateways in mainland Europe, not through London.
Yeah.
But there's an opportunity, clearly.
Yeah.
But it's going to be small.
Yeah.
But we have to nurture those markets, you know, because they will increase, and as they repeat visits to Europe, they become a better prospect to attract them to Ireland.
Sure. So we ought not to neglect them, is what you're saying, but that investment should be proportionate to the opportunity.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, well listen, that's terrific, Noel, for now. We'll come back to this little series of talks about various markets in the coming weeks, but a lot of food for thought there.